a developing tropical low in the northern Coral Sea, a second system threatening the Kimberley coastline in Western Australia, and the potential for more tropical activity as we head into February. That's what we're retracking this afternoon. Right now across northern Australia, conditions are building. Darwin S sitting at 35 degrees with high humidity. The build-up is well underway. Brisbane S been copping warm, sticky conditions all week. Meanwhile, down in Hobart, they saw -2 this morning with frost across the northern suburbs. The contrast across the country is massive, and it's all being driven by these tropical systems we are about to discuss. Let us start with what is happening in the Coral Sea, because this system is beginning to organise itself right now. The northern Coral Sea is extremely active at the moment. We've got a strengthening monsoon trough developing across this region, and you can see heavy shower and thunderstorm activity pouring into the Torres Strait through extreme far northern Queensland and across the Thursday Island area. These areas are already seeing heavy rain and strong wind gusts today. What we're really expecting is the development of a full tropical low to occur later tonight into early tomorrow morning out in the northern Coral Sea. Now, I have examined the latest from the Bureau of Meteorology and the European model, and here is what they are showing. The monsoon trough is deepening. There is significant monsoonal flow wrapping into the region, and we can see an area of low pressure beginning to spin itself up in true tropical low fashion. Initially, this system is going to be quite disorganized and weak. That continues through this afternoon and evening, but through tomorrow, we are expecting the system to get its act together a bit more and develop more rapidly as it heads down into the Coral Sea. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Over the next 4 or 5 days, this system S future is pretty much set in stone. We read generally expecting it to remain semi-monsoonal in nature. What does that mean? It's going to be quite broad. It S going to stay attached to further low pressure systems to the north of it, and at S really not going to separate itself from the monsoon, which means this system is going to struggle to intensify significantly. Regardless of that, it will find itself in a relatively favourable environment. As it tracks down towards the southeast, bypassing the Queensland coastline but hugging the Great Barrier Reef, we are expecting the system to slowly intensify. It may attain tropical cyclone status sometime on Friday, Saturday or Sunday as it moves down into the Coral Sea. For those in far north Queensland, from Cairns north through to Cooktown and Cape York, you're going to see the effects of this system even though the centre stays offshore. Heavy rainfall is likely, particularly across coastal areas. Widespread totals of 100 to 200 millimetres are possible, with isolated areas potentially seeing more. Strong wind gusts will develop, particularly Friday through Sunday. We're re-looking at gusts potentially reaching 80 to 100 kilometres per hour along exposed coastal areas. The seas will become very rough. Anyone with plans to be on the water this weekend along the Queensland coast needs to pay close attention to marine warnings from the Bureau. This is not a weekend to be heading out beyond the reef. Now, from that point onwards, the forecast becomes pretty uncertain. And I need to explain why, because it's important you understand what is driving this uncertainty. We're re-expecting the development of a high-pressure ridge down into the Tasman Sea, potentially offshore from Brisbane through southeastern Queensland. This high-pressure ridge is going to develop over the weekend, and by the time this tropical low gets itself down to the mid-latitudes offshore from Mackay, this high-pressure ridge is going to interfere with the system S steering flow. What happens then? The system is expected to stall. And stalling in the tropical world means exactly what it sounds like. The system is literally going to stop moving forward and park itself in one spot. Stalling tropical cyclones have an uncertain future. Right now, there's a pretty even split in the forecast models. Some are taking this storm out towards the Solomon Sea, eventually towards New Caledonia and Vanuatu. Others are taking the system back towards the Queensland coastline. My assessment right now is that the scenario further out into the Coral Sea is more likely. Here is why. This is a relatively weak, high-pressure ridge we're seeing with a pressure of about 1,015 to 1,020 hectopascals. To see this high-pressure ridge capable of steering the system back into Queensland and overpowering the jet stream, which is actually going to push this system towards the east, we'd be looking for a pressure of about 1,025 or 1,030 hectopascals. So it's a relatively weak ridge, and as such, it looks like it is going to be overpowered by the jet stream. That will swing this tropical cyclone if it is a tropical cyclone at this point, further out into the Coral Sea towards New Caledonia and Vanuatu. However, and this is important as we get towards Australia Day and into early next week, that pressure does jump up just a little bit in this area, and that may steer this tropical cyclone back towards Queensland briefly, or really hold its motion as it gets further around into the Coral Sea, prolonging its stalling pattern offshore from Queensland. Either way, this system is going to be tossed around. There is not much it is going to be able to do. It is going to be bullied by the jet stream and this high pressure ridge, which means high levels of wind shear and a relatively unfavourable environment for intensification. Plus, stalling tropical cyclones cause something called upwelling. That is where cooler waters from the lower levels of the ocean get brought up to the surface. Cooler sea surface temperatures allow for less development in tropical cyclones. You want a tropical cyclone to have some forward motion, so it keeps refreshing itself with warmer sea surface temperatures to intensify. This system won't have that opportunity because it'll be in that slow-moving stalling pattern. Overall, very unfavourable conditions for this tropical cyclone, whether it heads out towards the east or swings back towards Queensland. Either way, it's not expected to be a tropical cyclone for much longer after the weekend. When we compare it to similar systems, think of tropical cyclone Kimberley from a couple of years back. Similar start to life, but this system is smaller, more vulnerable and more susceptible to environmental influences. It's not going to have the same opportunity to strengthen that Kimberley had. For Queensland residents from Brisbane north to Cairns, here is what you need to be watching. The exact track of this system after the weekend is still uncertain. If those models shift and bring it closer to the coast, we could see increased impacts. Keep monitoring the Bureau of Meteorology forecasts closely. Don't make any firm plans for coastal activities next week until we have more certainty on this track. Right now, the most likely scenario is that this system moves offshore and doesn't directly threaten Queensland. But these situations can change, and stalling systems are notoriously difficult to forecast. We'll know more in the next 48 to 72 hours as the models get a better handle on how that high-pressure ridge develops. Now let's shift our attention across to Western Australia because there's another system developing that requires your attention. Tropical Low 16U is currently located just offshore from the North Kimberley coastline. Right now, it's a very broad, disorganised mess. There is shower and thunderstorm activity scattered across a wide area, and the centre of low pressure is difficult to pinpoint precisely. What I've been watching closely is the possibility of this system undergoing what we call a centre relocation. And that appears to be happening right now. We're beginning to see some lower level clouds slowly rotating in a new area, potentially south of Indonesia or southwest of Timor. This is in line with what forecast models are expecting as well. The fact that this system is beginning this process right now gives it a bit of a head start before it comes ashore into the North Kimberley coastline through Friday night into early Saturday morning. Forecast models are pretty certain about this. This system's going to dance around offshore for the next 2 or 3 days and then make a line for the Kimberley coastline, making landfall somewhere between Kalamburu and probably Kuri Bay or Derby, most likely around the Mitchell Plateau area or around Horizontal Falls. This is going to be quite interesting because it is going to have enough time offshore from the Kimberley coastline to get itself together into a tropical cyclone. Now, I reckon the Bureau of Meteorology has swung from being way too aggressive with their forecast for this cyclone to now being way too conservative. They've only got a 25% chance right now for tropical cyclone development. But considering bulk wind shear is forecast to drop off through today and tomorrow, conditions actually become somewhat favourable for this storm on Thursday and Friday. Here is what it's setting up. This system is going to have about 48 hours offshore as a freshly organised system in a very favourable environment, low wind shear, high sea surface temperatures around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. Plus, it is going to be a small system able to get its act together quite quickly. There is a chance this significantly intensifies before landfall. It's not a very high chance right now, but it is definitely a chance. For those along the North Kimberley coastline, excluding Derby, but for areas north of Derby up to Kalamburu and Truscott, I'd be recommending you prepare for a Category 1 tropical cyclone, maybe even a Category 2. Just in case this system really makes the most of its conditions offshore, what does preparation mean? Secure loose items around the property. Anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or brought inside. Stock up on essentials before the system arrives. Drinking water, non-perishable food, batteries, torches. If you're in a caravan, relocate to solid shelter. Caravans are not safe in tropical cyclone conditions. Check your emergency kit. Make sure you've got a battery-powered radio to receive warnings if the power goes out. Charge all your devices now while you have power. Know your cyclone category and what it means. A Category 1 cyclone has winds of 90 to 125 kilometres per hour. That's enough to cause damage to weak structures, trees and power lines. A Category 2 has winds of 125 to 165 kilometres per hour. Roof damage becomes much more likely at that intensity. The system will move through the Kimberley region after landfall. Where it goes from that point onwards is pretty uncertain. It's either going to head back towards the southwest or down towards the southeast through the Northern Territory. If it heads southeast, it dies off pretty quickly. If it heads southwest, it may bring a few more showers and thunderstorms to the Kimberley region and maybe even the Pilbara region through the Australia Day long weekend. Forecast models right now are pretty uncertain about this. The AI forecast models are showing that broad area of activity tracking down towards the southwest, making it a bit more favourable that this system goes into the Kimberley region and then down towards the Pilbara, somewhere into the central Pilbara between these main population centres, then tracking down through the eastern half of Western Australia, maybe even hugging the coastline. It's a difficult long-range forecast, but what is clear is that this system has shifted its centre of low pressure a bit further offshore in the last few hours, which does mean it is likely undergoing that centre relocation we picked up early this morning. And that means this system may actually have a better shot at coming into the Kimberley coastline as a stronger system than we initially estimated a couple of days ago. For those in Derby and further south, your risk is lower at this stage. But keep monitoring forecasts. These systems can shift, and what looks like a northern Kimberley impact today could shift south by tomorrow. For the Northern Territory, if this system does track southeast after landfall, you'll see increased showers and thunderstorms, but the system will weaken rapidly over land. Darwin won to see direct impacts from this system, but the broader monsoonal flow will keep conditions humid and unsettled. Now, looking further ahead, tropical cyclone signals increase as we head towards the end of January and into the first week of February, particularly for Western Australia. We're re-expecting a system to develop out near the Cocos-Keeling Islands. Right now, it looks a bit too far offshore to ever be a Western Australian threat, but we'll continue to monitor it. The more likely scenario is that this one heads into the graveyard, out into the open ocean where it doesn't threaten land. We may also see areas of low pressure develop out in the Coral Sea as well. This is definitely a feature to watch because long-range modelling has been consistently showing that the first or second week of February may produce some tropical cyclone activity out in the Coral Sea. So that is your early advanced warning for the Coral Sea and the Indian Ocean. We're re-heading into the peak of cyclone season. Historically, late January through February is when we see the most intense activity across northern Australia. Many of you remember Cyclone Tracy, Christmas Eve 1974, winds up to 217 kilometres per hour. Darwin was destroyed, or more recently, Cyclone Yasi in 2011. A Category 5 that crossed the coast near Mission Beach. These systems develop during this time of year when ocean temperatures are at their warmest and atmospheric conditions are most favourable. We were not predicting systems of that magnitude right now, but the message is clear. This is the time of year to be prepared. This is the time of year to have your cyclone plan ready, your emergency kit stocked, and your property prepared. For those in cyclone-prone regions across northern Australia, from Western Australia through the Northern Territory to Queensland, now is the time to review your preparations if you haven't already. Do you know your evacuation route? Do you know where your nearest evacuation centre is? Have you discussed your plan with family and neighbours? Do you have enough supplies for at least 3 days without power or access to shops? These aren't scare tactics. This is practical preparation for the reality of living in tropical Australia during cyclone season. You've been through this before. You know what S required. But it's worth the reminder as we head into this active period. Let me summarise what we're rewatching over the next week. Northern Coral Sea tropical low developing tonight into tomorrow. Expected to intensify as it tracks southeast, hugging the Queensland coast but staying offshore. May reach tropical cyclone status Friday through Sunday. Heavy rain and strong winds for far north Queensland coastal areas. System expected to stall over the weekend with uncertain track beyond that point. Most likely scenario is it moves offshore towards New Caledonia, but models could shift. Western Australia tropical low 16U offshore from the Kimberley coast. undergoing centre relocation, expected to make landfall North Kimberley coastline Friday night into Saturday morning. Potential to reach Category 1 or 2 intensity before landfall. Residents from Kalumburu to Truscott should prepare. Track after landfall uncertain, possibly affecting Pilbara region through Australia Day weekend. Increased tropical cyclone activity expected late January into February for both the Coral Sea and Indian Ocean. Systems developing near Cocos Keeling Islands. Potential for further Coral Sea development first or second week of February. This is shaping up to be an active period. Not unusually active for this time of year, but active nonetheless. The combination of warm ocean temperatures, favourable atmospheric conditions and active monsoon patterns means we need to stay alert. For those along the Queensland coast, keep monitoring Bureau of Meteorology forecasts for that Coral Sea system. For those in the Kimberley, preparations should begin now for that Friday night, Saturday morning impact. And for everyone across Northern Australia, make sure your cyclone preparations are current. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. They'll have the most up-to-date warnings and forecasts. Download the Emergency Plus app if you haven't already. It provides your GPS location to emergency services and has quick access to emergency numbers. Stay informed, stay prepared, and look after your mates and neighbours, especially the elderly or those who might need help with preparations. That is the situation as it stands this afternoon. We'll continue monitoring both these systems closely and provide updates as conditions develop. The next 48 hours will be crucial for determining the exact strength and track of both systems. These are dynamic situations. Forecasts will evolve as we get more data. What's important is that you re-aware, you re-prepared, and you re-monitoring official sources for the latest information.